Greek civilization emerged from the destructions that occurred at the end of the Bronze Age. Both the economy and art of Aegean Greece had been so dependent upon the palaces that when these buildings were destroyed, the culture itself died. Greece then entered a period of poverty and cultural stagnation known as the Dark Ages. Relatively few remains have survived from the Dark Ages, but the period is important in providing a link between the Bronze Age art of Greece and what we refer to simply as Greek art. We can see through the shapes and motifs of pottery that there was an attempt at the beginning of the Dark Ages to hold on to previous traditions. Yet because of the tremendous disruption caused by the destructions, both techniques and workmanship declined considerably. Sophisticated building methods, as well as the production of luxury goods, were gone. Only with the later part of the Dark Ages did Greece experience a revival of art and culture, stimulated at least in part by outside contacts. From this point onward, Greek art developed without interruption through the Hellenistic period. The rise of Greek civilization is accompanied by an expansion of its territory. Already during the Dark Ages, around 1000 BC, Greeks began to settle on the coast of Asia Minor in modern-day Turkey. Because of the dialect of Greek spoken, those cities to the north are referred to as Aeolic, and the area as Aeolia, while the settlements further south are called Ionic, and their land Ionia. These terms were later applied to the architectural styles developed in the respective regions. Slightly over 200 years after this first wave of colonization, the Greeks began to move westward. They settled primarily in southern Italy and Sicily, but colonies are also found as far west as France and Spain. This movement was apparently motivated by overpopulation at home, as well as a desire for greater economic and political opportunities in a new land. Thus, their first settlement on the island of Ischia in the Bay of Naples was sited to take advantage of trade with the Etruscans, the predecessors of the Romans in northern Italy. Indeed, the establishment of colonies in both the east and west put the Greeks in close contact with many foreign peoples, whom the Greeks referred to collectively as barbarians. We are particularly aware of the strong impact of the older and more sophisticated civilizations of Mesopotamia and the eastern Mediterranean on the Greeks during the Orientalizing period. At the beginning of the Archaic period, Egyptian influence becomes especially strong. Through their interaction with the Etruscans and other Italic people, the Western Greeks absorb new ideas. Greek art thus owes much to the cultures around it, although the selection and use of foreign elements are always modified by Greek taste. Ironically, the growing contact with other cultures also stimulated in the Greeks an increasing awareness of their own shared heritage. We thus see the rise of the major Greek sanctuaries during the 8th century BC. According to tradition, the Olympic Games were founded in 776 BC. Both Olympia and Delphi show a large number of dedications during this period, many in the form of small-scale bronzes. The architectural development of the sanctuaries, however, begins in the Archaic period, with the construction of monumental stone temples and of smaller temple-like buildings called treasuries. The growing power and prosperity of the Greeks during the Archaic period did not go unnoticed by their foreign neighbors. Two events occurred in 480 BC that proved decisive for later Greek history. In the west, Carthage invaded Sicily and was repulsed at the Battle of Himera. The mainland was invaded by another power, the Persians, and the Athenian Acropolis burned. Led by the Athenians, the Greeks were able to defeat the Persians in the Battle of Salamis. According to tradition, the two victories occurred on the same day, but the effects on art in each area are very different. After 480 BC, the Western Greeks turned more to the mainland for artistic inspiration, effectively ending their great period of experimentation. In the mainland, Athens assumes artistic as well as military leadership and introduces the innovations of the classical period in her rebuilding of the Acropolis. The benefits of Athenian predominance were not to last long. Just as the Carthaginians and the Persians felt threatened by Greek power, so the other Greeks resented the rise of Athens and the empire she controlled. During much of the second half of the 5th century BC, Athens was at war with Sparta and its allies. This protracted struggle opened the way to the control of Greece by Philip of Macedon during the 4th century BC. After Alexander the Great conquered Asia and Egypt beginning in 334 BC, the centers of artistic and economic development shifted to the east, with the old Ionian cities being the chief beneficiaries. The great building programs and the most renowned sculptural schools of the Hellenistic period are found primarily along the coast of Asia Minor. The courts of the Hellenistic rulers, also located mainly in the east, played a role as well in the development of the arts, both to legitimize their powers and to embellish appropriately their capital cities. During the Hellenistic period, a new threat, Rome, was emerging in the west and gradually conquering the Greek cities of southern Italy and Sicily. By the 2nd century BC, Rome was ready to move against Greece and Asia Minor. In 31 BC, the Romans defeated the ruler of the last remaining Hellenistic kingdom to claim Egypt and the entire Mediterranean as her own.